Welcome. I got a lip piercing recently, and I'm going to be talking about Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is a game no one really liked much on launch, and is loved by almost everyone who plays it now. Originally, it came out when I was around in high school, and I laughed at all the videos online. Who didn't? You probably did too. All the bugs, people getting launched in the air, cars flipping around. And I didn't think twice about getting the game, but suddenly one day when the game was on sale, I thought it'd be pretty fun to give it a try, seeing as I watched Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and so I played the game. And I thought it was really fun. And what stuck out to me was some of the mechanics as well as the story and the endings. The story itself is fairly simple, being that you slowly learn about the world through some of your missions and are trying to get Johnny Silverhand, who is a terrorist and a rock star, out of your head before you die. As the game progresses, you get to know some of these characters and you get to care about them while disliking others. And it has a weird way of making you just care about everything. But what really got me to care about the game wasn't the gameplay or the story. It was actually the endings that it had to offer and the sort of messages that it portrayed. It was also the sick cars. I love those cars. They're very sleek and nice, and some of them look a bit shitty, but that just makes them even funnier. I could just talk about these for a while, but that's a topic for a different time. Before I talk about the endings and the different meanings that they have, I'm gonna warn you that there's gonna be spoilers for the endings if you couldn't already glean that from what I've been saying or the title of the video in general. The main concept of Cyberpunk's endings are pretty simple in concept anyway, being that it's the message of you'll either die young and in a blaze of glory, or you will die old where no one remembers you. This motto is said in many different variations in the game and the anime, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and any ending is a variation and spin-off of this motto that you, the player, gets to decide for V, the main character, will have to choose and figure out what you'll be okay with as the ending. By this, I mean that there aren't really any good endings in Cyberpunk. They just don't really exist. In a world where people are exploited to their fullest and corporations always win, how can one person get the perfect ending in such a horrible world? It's just not possible. So instead, you have to pick your poison. No matter what, you will die eventually. You just have to choose how you want to live that life and how you want to die, which is exactly what these endings allow you to do. There are 5-ish endings in Cyberpunk. I'll talk about that later. Being the Devil, Sun, Star, Temperance, and Tower endings. Of course, being the rest of the tarot cards, which you find in the game. And of course, relating to what happens in each ending. The Devil ending focuses on V siding with Arasaka, which is an evil corporation, as his way to remove the chip that has Johnny in his head. And you actually find out that Saburo Arasaka, the head of the company who had died previously at the beginning of the game, had his soul, which is just his memories. It's his construct. So basically it's his personalities, memories, and everything about him put into a chip. So is it really him? It's like existential. But because he was imprinted into a chip, this means that the events that happened at the beginning of the game were in a sense useless and makes anyone who died on your side at the beginning of the game an unnecessary loss. Eventually though, through combat, you make your way to where you're supposed to go and pass out only to find yourself talking to Johnny in the computer world. And he mentions that you haven't changed for the better over the course of the game. With that, you find yourself waking up in a small room and getting tested on while on a space station And day after day, you get tested on with nothing important happening to you, and you're by yourself, and no one's gonna help you because you sided with the devil. But depending on if you save Takamura, who is an employee of Arasaka, he's like, so if you had like a range of 1 to 10 for employee level, he's like a 3 or a 2. He's like the personal bodyguard to Saburo Arasaka, the head guy. But if you save him or not, he can sort of return somewhat of a favor to you, and he'll give you a choice on how you want the ending to actually happen. You can either return to Earth, and you know that you're gonna die soon, and no one's gonna care about you because you sided with Arasaka, or you can die and have your soul be saved in hopes that Arasaka will put you in a new body and not just shelf you for eternity. But then also, even if you do get put in a new body, there's the whole question of, will it really be you? Ooh. But this tarot ending is pretty clear in its meaning. You fucked up, V realizes it, so do you. You sided with the devil, being Arasaka, and got what you deserved by helping the corporation that is actively trying to destroy everything. The sun ending happens when siding with Rogue and the Afterlife bar, which is like this bar of mercenaries, to attack Arasaka Tower and save V. When getting to Mikoshi, which is the device needed to get the chip out of V, V talks with Johnny and chooses to keep his body, or Johnny tells V to keep his body. So V, knowing that he only has a few months left to live, becomes the head of the afterlife and pulls off one last big hit on a, guess what, space casino. It's the classic. But he does that and then dies, and that's it. But yeah, for this tarot, it mainly just has the meaning of V going out in his blaze of glory, like he was burning up in the sun and becoming a shining legend of the merc business. The Temperance ending happens in the same way as the sun ending, but with V forcing Johnny to keep his body. This allows Johnny to live, as the body is technically his, and lets him live his whole lifespan, but with V dying on the spot. And also with V dying, Johnny doesn't have any more reason to live in Night City anymore, seeing as he did all the things he wanted to do. So he leaves Night City, but doesn't tell anyone where V went or what happened to him. So everyone actually just thinks he's missing, and you never really find out what happens to Johnny either. The Temperance has V coming to terms with himself that his body is no longer his, and thus giving it to Johnny, as he helped him through so much of the game and effectively became his best friend. The star ending happens when siding with the Aldecaldo Nomads, and you attack Arasaka Tower to remove Johnny from your head. After doing so, and losing some characters along the way, you end up removing Johnny and leaving the tower. This all ends with V leaving Night City to become a nomad himself, and ultimately meets his end in the desert with no one actually knowing where he died. The star is a clear indicator that V has become an explorer of sorts, letting the stars take him where he wants to go, and not letting Night City, or anyone else for that matter, chain him down. Another ending, not the final ending, is the tower ending, which was introduced in the DLC as players were complaining that V doesn't actually live in any of the endings. They were like, oh, please, come on. V has to have like an ending where he at least lives. So they made that happen. Anyway, this ending focuses on V siding with Solomon Reed, who is this like government agent, and you get help from the government to take Johnny out of your head in an experimental sort of procedure. Fortunately, it works and you are alive, but there's a big but. Unfortunately, a lot of time has passed, so much so that Night City isn't really the same anymore, and you can actually no longer use cyberware. Like they fried your entire system basically. And not only can you not use your cool, your cool punching hands, you can't make knives come out of you, you can't do like a double jump, you can't do anything like that. You can't even pull a little wire out of your wrist. I don't even know if you can even put a chip in your neck. Like, you can't do anything. You can't even live in the world. You've basically become like one of the monks, one of these guys. And from this happening, you've become essentially a nobody. The tower itself represents the challenges V has faced in the DLC, as well as the impossible challenge that is his new life without implants. While those are the 5 endings, you can get variations of the Temperance and Sun endings, as well as what I call a cheap ending. If you manage to become good enough friends with Johnny in the mission Chippin' In, which is a reference to one of Johnny's songs, you can see it on Spotify, great song. You have the option of waiting 3 minutes at the rooftop where you choose your ending, and if you do wait those 3 minutes, Johnny will actually suggest a different way to enter Arasaka Tower, which is by yourself as a one-person army. This is my personal favorite way to enter the tower, as you're not putting any weight onto any of the characters, and you are just focusing on yourself. No one's gonna get hurt other than yourself. You don't need to bring people into your shit, into your problems. And also the other thing about this ending, this way to get an ending, is that V is in control rather than Johnny. And the other ending, which I call the cheap ending, is when at the rooftop where you get to choose your ending, you can choose to pick up a gun and end your life. I personally don't like this ending, as it doesn't really fit the character very well, because V's very much so well known as a character that spends his hardest to build himself up in the world, and it feels more like a cop-out than anything, because I don't know, it just doesn't seem like his character would do that. I mean, I guess to other people it could seem like that, but to me it doesn't. But while each ending is quite unique and different from each other, they all follow the motto again of live fast and die young, or live slow and die old. It not only reflects the game world in a fitting way, but also has the sort of ending that you may or may not want. In this, I mean that no matter what, you're never going to actually like any of the endings, but you can only come to terms with it. It's the same way as experiencing a death, like a death in the family. You can never actually accept it, but the most you can do is come to terms with it and know that you enjoyed the moments along the way. My personal favorite ending, though, was the Sun ending, as V gets to go out in his blaze of glory and most likely have a drink named after him at the afterlife. And while that seems sad and stupid to some people, in this world where there's so many and so little people, at least having something to remember you by, even if it's just a story, or a drink, just having that thought that you'll at least be remembered is enough to kind of keep me going. Lastly, we all know that CD Projekt Red is planning on releasing another Cyberpunk anime and game, and no one knows what they're going to be about and when they're going to take place, but I sincerely do hope that they don't take place in Night City. I know it sounds a bit weird, but we already explored all of Night City in the game and in Edgerunners, the anime. Go watch it. But by making the game take place in a new city like Tokyo or Atlanta, these are just what they've meant, cities that they've mentioned in the game, this can keep the ending for Cyberpunk somewhat open and not have a concrete ending, as that kind of takes the feeling of decision away from players. A good game that has these sort of you choose your own ending is Fallout New Vegas, although that might be rectified soon with the new Fallout Season 2 coming out. That might actually put it in a concrete ending. But anyway, remember that in Cyberpunk, there are never happy endings. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.